Hello everyone, my name is Hannah and welcome to a new video and welcome to my guide to Penelope Douglas books. So I have officially read every single thing that Penelope Douglas has published, and so I thought it would be a good idea to make this video just because I know some of their series are starting to cross and there's spin-off series, and I just wanted to make this video because I thought it would be really fun. So if you don't know, Penelope Douglas is a romance author. They write mainly bully romances, some dark-ish. It's not too dark, but it's definitely not cutesy romances. And they have 3 series going right now and 5 standalones. So I figured I would talk about each of them and talk about when crossovers happen and what order to read certain books in and all that stuff. I will leave Penelope Douglas's website linked down below, as well as their Instagram account. They are not overly active on Instagram, but their website, they've got all this information on their website, plus deleted scenes and bonus content. If you really liked a certain book or series, there's always bonus content on there. Also a shop if you want to buy merch. I have this Cypher Core Summer Tour, which is from Punk 57, which is my favorite Penelope Douglas book. But they also sell their books and you can get them signed at no extra cost. And so I think that's pretty cool because the prices on their website are just as comparable as buying them on Amazon, but then you can get it signed. So I will, whenever they publish a new book, I'm just gonna order it straight from their website because then I can get it signed. So without further ado, let's get into all of Penelope Douglas's books. I'm first going to start off with their standalone books, and I'm going to start off with my favorite one, Punk 57. So Punk 57 was the very first Penelope Douglas book that I picked up, and it's my favorite. I have reread it a few times. I actually went through and annotated in it because I love it so much, and I really want to do another reread soon, but I just absolutely loved this book so much. This is a bully romance, but it's actually a friends to enemies to lovers. This is set in a high school, so if you don't like that, then maybe don't pick this one up. It didn't bother me, they were 18 and they're upper high school, so it didn't feel like reading a normal high school romance, if that makes sense. But there are some smutty scenes, so if that makes you uncomfortable, then probably don't pick this one up. But basically, the 2 main characters in this book, Misha and Ryan, start out as pen pals. They go to different schools, and when they're in 5th grade, I think, their teacher pairs them up as pen pals, and so they become best friends through that. One day they're at a party and Misha, the guy, meets Ryan, and she's nothing like how she seems in her letters. In her letters, she feels very down to earth, and when he meets her in real life, it's everything that they're supposed to hate in other people. She's the head cheerleader and she's kind of mean to people, just nothing like how she is in her letters. And so he ends up hating her, and then something happens that he ends up going to her school and pretending to be somebody else, and since they're pen pals, they've never met in real life, and they have this pact to not look each other up on social media or anything. So she has no idea that it's him, but he obviously knows it's her, and so he is really mean to her, and she's like, what the heck did I do to this guy? I've never even talked to him before. It takes off from there, and basically it's them having this kind of banter and bickering back and forth, and I just love it so much. Just talking about it right now makes me want to reread it. I just love this book. And while this is a standalone, the characters in this book make an appearance in one of Penelope Douglas's other series. So that's Punk 57. The next standalone that I'm going to talk about is Tryst 6 Venom. This is another bully romance set in a high school, but this one is sapphic. It follows Olivia and Clay is the preppy, pretty mean girl, and Olivia is the poor, wrong side of the tracks kind of girl, and they just constantly butt heads. Clay is so mean to Olivia, and at some points the bullying in this book goes pretty far, to the point where I'm ooh, why do I like this? But the tension between these 2 is so good. So yeah, it's one of those bad girl, good girl romances. If you like that, I would definitely recommend this. If you don't mind the bullying aspect, because Clay really does lay on the bullying really thick, and it's just so good. This is one of the ones that I was able to get signed because I ordered this straight from their website. So I think if you've read Punk 57, I think Punk 57 is probably one of Penelope Douglas's like more well-known books. If you read that one and haven't read this one, I would definitely recommend this one. The next one, and maybe their most well-known book, is Birthday Girl. So this is an age gap romance. It is also an ex-boyfriend's dad romance, but this one out of all of their romances is probably the sweetest, like most wholesome romances. It's still taboo, which Penelope Douglas loves to write taboo romances, but this one is really sweet. I just really loved this one. I think this might have been the first like age gap romance that I ever read, and I really liked it. So this follows Jordan and Pike, and Jordan is dating Pike's son, whose name I completely forgot. I don't know what his name is. I forgot it. Anyways, so she's dating him, and they like get evicted from their apartment because her boyfriend is kind of like terrible, and they end up having to go live with his father. And then through a series of events, that is where Jordan stays, and she and the boyfriend, the son, break up, and she's got nowhere else to go. And so Pike, the dad, is like, you can still stay here, it's fine, like everything's fine, you can stay here. And then those two start developing a bit of a romance, and it's really cute, but again, very taboo, not just because it's ex-boyfriend's dad, but the age gap, because I think she's like 18 or 19. But yeah, this one is really good. I also forgot to mention that all of Penelope Douglas's books come with a playlist in the beginning of the book, and they're really good. Like, I found some of my like favorite songs of all time from these playlists. I would have never heard those songs before if it wasn't for them being included here. And the way that Penelope Douglas does it is they might write in the story like this song is playing, and so you can play it while that scene is happening, or they'll just say like, let me see, for instance, they'll just say this Joan Jett song is playing, or a Joan Jett song is playing, and you just know that it's this one. But sometimes they're not specifically mentioned by name, but they're really fun. I love when books include playlists. The next standalone is Credence, and this is maybe the most taboo of all of their books. I don't know, but I freaking loved this book. It follows Tiernan, who loses both of her parents in one fell swoop, and she has nowhere to go, and she ends up going to stay with her uncle and cousins, step cousins. They're not actually related like by blood, but that's the taboo part of it. So it's her dad's stepbrother, but her dad and the stepbrother Jake never like grew up together. Their parents got married when they were like much older, and they never got along, so they didn't have like a brother bond. But even still, like, technically this is her uncle, technically, even though the dad and the uncle aren't blood related either. So it's like, it's a mess. Anyways, she goes and stays with these three men, and they live like up in the mountains in Colorado, I think. And she kind of develops feelings for all three of them. So Jake, he is her step uncle. He's older than her, so there's an age gap there. And then the two step cousins of hers are like around her age. They're a little bit older than her, but they're around her age. They're in their 20s. And yeah, they just kind of, she starts developing feelings for all three of them. And so you're like, who's she gonna end up with? Who's she gonna pick? But one thing that I love about this book, and Punk 57 as well, is Penelope Douglas does a great job of writing like emotion and stories that actually make you feel something versus just reading it like for the romance and for the smut. But like I really connect to the main characters that they write. So Tiernan, I really love Tiernan and just like what she's going through emotionally, but also the romance and the smut is also really good. And now onto the final standalone, which is Misconduct. So this one is my least favorite Penelope Douglas. Unfortunately, I did actually end up DNFing this one. I really was not enjoying it. Every other Penelope Douglas book that I read, I have given 4 stars or higher, like 4 or 5 stars. This one, I probably would have ended up giving it 2 stars or lower, but I ended up DNFing it because there is a non-con scene in this one, and it really rubbed me the wrong way. Plus I wasn't connected to either of the characters, because like the sex scene that happens is she says stop or please stop multiple times and he doesn't stop and they end up having sex, and it's like, I don't like that. I will say though, in Credence there is some dub-con and some, I think there is a non-con scene, but the way that it's written I was okay with, but in this one it really rubbed me the wrong way. But this one follows Easton, who is a teacher, and then also Tyler, who's the love interest, who is the father of one of her students. And so they're not supposed to be together and they get off on the wrong foot, and so they start off kind of as like a hate to love situation. But yeah, I did not like Tyler at all, didn't care about him. Easton was okay, but like, I don't know, I just didn't really connect to her. I think I would retry this another time, but I also might not, just because like I just wasn't connecting, and I think I got like 120 pages or something like that into it, but I might still want to finish this whole thing, but I just did not like this one the most. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say on Misconduct. So those are all of the standalones that Penelope Douglas has published. And now they also have 2-3 series as well. So the first series I'm going to talk about is the Devil's Night series, the first book being Corrupt. So there are 4 books in the Devil's Night series, as well as 2 novellas. And basically this is another bully romance. Each book follows a different horseman. So there's this group of 4 guys who get together every year on Devil's Night, which is the night before Halloween, and they just cause all kinds of trouble, and they call themselves the 4 Horsemen, and each book follows a different one of the horsemen. And so in this book we follow Michael, who is kind of the unofficial leader of the horsemen, and then also Erica. She's the main character in this one. And all we know going into this is that Rika did something that ended up sending 3 of them to jail, and we have no idea what that was, and they have recently gotten out of jail. And they all hate her and they want revenge. And so it's kind of a cat and mouse situation where they're all trying to just mess with Rika and like screw up her life basically. But she's always had a crush on Michael, and Michael is actually her boyfriend's older brother. And so there's that like forbidden taboo-ness to it. But yeah, I really loved this series. So again, this one follows Michael. Then the second book, Hideaway, follows Kai. The third book, and I think my favorite book of the series, Kill Switch, follows Damon. And Damon, like, I hated Damon in the first 2 books. I was like, how am I gonna read this huge chunker of a book about this character that I loathe? But I'm really, really glad that I still read it. Like, I was thinking, like, maybe I'll just read spoilers so I can skip this book, but I'm so glad that I read it. It ended up being one of my favorites, and you just really get to understand him a lot better. Like, he's terrible in those first 2 books, but you really understand him, and it doesn't excuse what he does in the first 2, but it does explain it a bit. So this was my favorite in the series. Then after Kill Switch is the Novella Conclave, and I know sometimes people are like, I'm not going to read any novellas because if the author wanted me to know that, they would have put it in the actual books. But this one I actually think has like important information, and it's so short. It's only like 90 pages, 95 pages. Okay, just kidding. It's 100 pages, but like 100 pages. But it does actually have some like important discussion and information to set up the finale. So I do think that you should read this. Technically you can skip it, but I just feel like you might be a little bit confused going into the 4th book if you don't read this. So I would recommend reading it. Then we have the 4th book, which is Nightfall, and this one follows Will. And Will is actually Misha from Punk 57, his cousin. So Misha and Ryan have a crossover. I think Conclave is the first like appearance that they make in this series, but also the 4 Horsemen from the Devil's Night series make an appearance in Punk 57. So you don't have to read one in order to read the other. It's just like fun seeing those characters in a different book. But yeah, they do make like a crossover just appearance. So yeah, this one follows Will. And then we have the little novella, which is Fire Night. So this one is like a holiday novella, and it's set several years after like the completion of the series. It follows those characters' children now. It is like a fun little like Christmassy, wintry themed novella, but this one is definitely not necessary to read. It's just like if you want more of the characters, if you want more of like the Devil's Night guys, it's worth the read. I think I enjoyed it, but it's definitely not necessary. Then next up we have the Fall Away series, the first book being Bully. This was Penelope Douglas's first published book, and it is obviously a bully romance. It follows Tate and Jared, who also fall into that friends to enemies to lovers trope. So if you like that, give this one a shot. So they start off as childhood friends, and then Jared goes away for the summer to be with his dad. And when he comes back, something has like flipped in him, and he ends up being really mean to Tate. They're not friends anymore. He is super mean. He bullies her all the time at school. And then Tate goes away for the summer, or away for a year maybe. She studies abroad, and when she comes back, she's like done taking his crap. And so she ends up fighting back a little bit, and it's them like having this like antagonistic relationship that develops into a relationship. So that's the setup for Bully. And then we have the next book, which is 1.5 technically. This is Until You, and this one is Jared's point of view of what happens in Bully. So in this one, we only get Tate's perspective, and this kind of gives you like a few scenes from Jared's point of view that you're like, what is he thinking? What is he like? What is he trying to do here? But it also adds a lot to his backstory, so you understand him a lot better. And I definitely think this one is worth the read. It is not by any means like this book rewritten in his perspective. There's overlapping scenes, but there's so much more added to it that it feels like its own book. It's just like following this timeline again. And I especially felt like I wanted Jared's point of view from this, because all you see is him being mean and you don't see his thought process until you get to this book. So I think this is definitely worth it. And I do actually feel like this one is necessary going into the next series. You could read Bully as a standalone and leave it at that, but if you're going to continue on with the Fall Away series, you do need to read Until You. Then we have book 2, technically 3 if you're going to continue the series. That makes sense. And that is Rival, and this is following Jared's best friend Maddox and his stepsister. So this is another taboo romance. It is step siblings, and this one actually does the lovers to enemies to lovers pattern. It's kind of like a second chance a little bit, because they had a thing and then they didn't, and they were fighting and they hated each other, and then they're starting to develop those feelings again. That's all I'm really going to say on that one. That's all you really need to know. So that's this one. Then you have Falling Away, which is the 3rd/4th book, depending on how you want to look at it. And this is following Tate's best friend, Casey, and another one of the characters we meet earlier in the series, but I'm not going to say who because I don't want any spoilers, so I'll just say that it follows Tate's best friend. And then there are a couple novellas that you read at the end of the series. I have the bind up, which is called The Next Flame. The novellas are called A Flame and Next to Never. So A Flame is a continuation of Tate and Jared's story, because you end with them like in high school, and it's helping kind of bridge the gap between this series and the spin-off series. And then Next to Never is set several years after the Fall Away series, and it's following the couples from this series' children, and it's just like as their children, like they're really young, and then the spin-off series follows their children much older. So it's like following the timeline of them. And then there is also on Penelope Douglas's website, Adrenaline, I think it's called, which is just like deleted scenes and bonus scenes from the Fall Away series. And then their newest series, which only has 1 book out so far, is called Falls Boys. And like I said, this is the companion sequel series to the Fall Away series. So this is following the couples from those books, their children, when these children are at the age that those couples were at in their books. So I won't say who this book is following or whose children this is following, but this does have the good boy, bad girl trope, which I really enjoyed, and I'm very excited for the next books in this series. I think there's going to be 5 books, and the next book I think is Pirate Girls. I think is what it's called, and that one comes out in March of 2023, I believe. But I'll try to pop up a picture of the book covers. There maybe are 5 or 6 books in this series, and Penelope Douglas already has all of the covers done for them already, so I'll try to pop up a picture somewhere on the screen so you can see those. But yeah, the next book in that series comes out next year. So those are all of the Penelope Douglas books that have been published as of this present moment. I hope that this cleared some things up for you, explained some things, got you excited. If you're in the mood for some new adult, kind of dark but not too dark romances, I would highly recommend these. I love Penelope Douglas's writing and just the way that they're able to convey very emotional characters and emotional stories, but mix in the romance and the smut. It's just so well done. I love it. Yeah, Penelope Douglas is one of my favorite authors. I will pick up any book that they publish. Even though I didn't like Misconduct, I have liked all of their other books. So I'm very excited to see what they come out with in the future. So if you made it to the end of this video, leave the, I don't know, is there like a spray paint emoji, or maybe just like the paint splotches emoji, something paint related, in the comments down below for Punk 57, since that's my favorite Penelope Douglas. So leave that down in the comments down below to let me know that you made it to the end of this video. And again, I will leave Penelope Douglas's Instagram and their website linked down below if you want to check that out, as well as all of my socials if you want to follow me on any of those. And don't forget to click like and subscribe while you're down there. It really helps support me and my channel, and I would really appreciate it. And thank you again so much for watching this video. I'll see you all in my next one. Bye.